Someone wise once said, no matter how much you pay for something, you don't own it. You don't own it because eventually you will die, and the artifact or possession you have will remain. So what you're really paying for is the right to have the responsibility to take care of it, or to be its caretaker to ensure that it gets from this point today to some point in the future, where hopefully it will continue to be cared for so it can keep telling its story and the history it's witnessed. As a collector, that statement is very true for nearly everything and anything you might have a passion for. Vehicles, artwork, instruments, and the list goes on. But for today, our presentation will be focusing on how to care for, protect, and preserve your favorite baseball bat, with our very special guest and expert conservator, Jim Keading. So keep it right here, where the great stories on great relics never gets old, on History and Relics. Cap Anson, the 6-foot, 227-pound strapping right-handed first baseman, was considered to be one of the first superstars in baseball, playing some 27 seasons, from 1871 to 1897, a feat only matched by Nolan Ryan in 1993. Anson had a career batting average of .334 and was the first player in history to reach 3,000 hits. He was also one of the first players of the 19th century selected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1939. Anson's bats were unique to his era, especially for their size and weight. Another fantastic hitter, George Sisler, became a great hitting instructor for several major league clubs following his professional playing career. In 1935, Sisler commented on Anson by comparing bats used during his time to those in Sisler's more modern era. He said, "Have you ever seen specimens of bats used in the early days of baseball? Veritable wagon tongues they were, not much longer than modern bats, but much heavier and much thicker in the handles. The bat used by Pop Anson, whose record as a leading batsman almost equals that of Ty Cobb, was 36 inches long and weighed 48 ounces, and its handle had a circumference of 4 inches. Hitters, such as Anson, also knew exactly when they exhausted the maximum number of hits for any given bat. How did they know? Well, because the base hits just ceased. It was a sure mystical sign that a bat change was in order, and that's what a lot of players did. But instead of putting the now hitless bat in the trash, hitters such as Anson retired it with honor and preserved it. Anson treated his bats with awe and reverence that bordered on superstitious behavior. A bat was not just an inanimate chunk of wood, but rather a living thing that had to be treated with respect if it was going to do or continue to do its intended work, meaning lining out base hits on a regular basis. Legend has it that Anson would drive his horse-drawn wagon throughout the countryside, keeping an eye out for a properly seasoned piece of wood. It might be part of an old fence post, or even a fallen tree limb or log, and when he found it, he would contact the owner of the property that he discovered it on and strike a deal to buy it. From there, back home he went to have it converted into a war club. Over the course of his 26-year career, Anson frequently changed bats, but he never disposed of a single one. According to a private letter written by Jack Corbett of the Hollywood Star base on February 20, 1957, Anson was devoted to his lumber. Anson had over 400 bats in his cellar when he quit playing baseball. All were oiled and dusted every day, except Sunday. But a few of his bats must have been left behind, given away, or perhaps sold by Anson, because even though he was forced into retirement at the end of the 1897 season, his legendary bats continued to do the work on the diamond well into the 20th century, by such players as John Titus of the Philadelphia Phillies in 1911. In the early history of Louisville Slugger, they often published booklets on how to select and care for bats. In one such brochure, it's emphatically stated, "Take care of your bat. Don't let it lie in the sun for long periods of time. Protect it also from moisture. Rub it occasionally with linseed oil. And don't hammer the bat against your spikes or other hard objects." Other bat manufacturers from the early period, such as Kren bats, attempted to come up with their own formula to protect bats. In one booklet they published in April 1933, they state that the introduction of the use of creosote in the treatment of their bats had proven to be quite successful, so much so that it was now an outstanding feature on their entire line. Kren goes on to say that for many years creosote was used for the protection of wood against all adverse conditions, or weather and water, and so it remained the Kren to use creosote mixed with their own special blend of oils for the protection and preservation of their baseball bats. As a vintage bat collector, be it a store or retail model, business promotional, or professional models that were issued or used by semi-pros or major leaguers, many of these bats are approaching or are over 100 years old now. And the older they are, the harder they are to find, because many have simply not survived. So if you have a vintage bat, and whether it's in decent shape, needs a little TLC, or has significant damage or deterioration, how do you take care of it, or make the needed repairs in order to protect it from worsening further, and ensure it's preserved not only for your enjoyment, but for the next generation of collectors, or for the sake of the history that it bears? Meet Jim Keading, a collector, historian, and someone who knows a thing or two about cleaning, restoring, and preserving baseball bats. We had a chance to meet up with Jim at his home in northern Michigan, where he not only showed us around his own outstanding collection of memorabilia, but he provided us some healthy insight that we could all use in caring for and protecting our baseball bats. Jim also helped me, and quite graciously I might add, with a couple of my bats that posed some interesting challenges, from dealing with poorly done repairs that someone did with nails and screws, to repairing a bat barrel where the back of the bat had been missing for years. But Jim proved once more his dedication to these old bats, and through his expertise, they will be enjoyed for many years to come.
Will be, our children.
Right.
It could be another collector. We don't know.
Right.
But our ownership of this is very limited. And the importance is that we maintain this and we care for it for generations, not just for the time being. So what I do is I make sure that this grain is completely secure. There is no flaw or issue at any point of this bat. And yeah, it's a little bit shinier than what some people might like, but I want to tell you that grain is secure, and it's going to be secure for a very, very, very long time.
Right.
And That's really what this is all about for me. It's making sure that this bat is going to be secure for generations. The reason that I go to the extent that I do when I work with a bat is to help with that preservation, to help with that feel, to help with, getting it back. I will admit, I go a lot farther in what I do than anyone I know except one guy. But I know what wood has to be like.
Right.
I know what wood, the proper treatment of the wood should be. And I know for a fact what that bat should feel like.
Right.
And most of the things that I purchase and get in, the reason I started doing this is I was so disappointed with what I was purchasing.
Sure.
I was completely blown away. I was thinking that, don't people care about the bats that they have?
Right.
Don't they?
Right.
Now, I will admit, when you look at all of these bats, there are some that are shinier than others, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some are a little more matte, but do they, to me, not one bat in here, except for maybe the one on the top of that rack, they don't look over shiny. They don't look too shiny.
Right.
And some of that shine is something which I'll show with your bats.
Okay.
You can control, and sometimes, it is a property of that bat.
Okay.
Whatever they did to that surface,
It was meant to be that way.
it just seems to turn out much more shiny than...
Much more prevalent than others.
Oh, yeah. But, you can see it here, But the quality of that wood surface, and you can tell, are there any grain issues here?
No.
I mean, it wouldn't be that smooth if there was.
No.
Now that I can bring back.
Okay.
That I can bring back.
Okay.
And you will also see that in those bats that you brought me. I appreciated the challenge.
One of the bats Jim helped me with was this 1930s Kren Special Pro Model bat of Joe Bennis. Bennis was primarily a minor league player, but did make a short stint in the majors with the St. Louis Cardinals in 1931. This bat had some old repairs done to it with screws that have since drawn a bit of moisture, making the screws rust. Repairs done like this only provide a temporary fix, but create an even larger problem over time, such as deterioration at the core of the bat, deadwood, and even weight loss. So the screws were removed, the holes cleaned out and properly filled, grain separation and cracks around the barrel were secured, and a portion of the knob was restored. The result? Well, they say a photo is worth 1,000 words, so take a look for yourself.
I did keep it a little bit, the color isn't perfect on this, and I didn't want it to be.
Yeah.
Because I wanted it to still have some of the, remnants of the era.
Sure.
Of its use. So it's definitely not perfect, but the crack, it's going to be really, really hard to find it now. The knob, I left it, kind of the way it was.
Yep.
A little bit rough, but the knob is now complete. It's not broken 2 places. The 3 screws came out of this bat.
Okay.
And a nail came out of one of these, but it's going to be hard to really tell anymore. So anyways, but if you look at the screws, you can see how rusted they were all the way down into the bat. That means that the screw was carrying moisture deep into the core of that bat, which was going to rot the inner core.
Yep, over time.
Well, it was already happening. So even this little tiny thin nail also has rust on the nail that was inside of the wood.
Does.
So it was holding moisture in, and that's why you get the nails out of there. You can see where they were.
Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting was you can still kind of feel it a little bit, but there was so much dead wood that it was almost like caving in around the space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but all that dead wood is gone.
Okay.
And all that is patched. I put wood in there, so that should be all set.
The next bat that needed some work was this 1930s Kren Special Pro Model bat of Art Veltman. Veltman was a major league catcher between 1926 and 1934 for a number of teams, including the White Sox, New York Giants, and the Pittsburgh Pirates. This bat needed some real help, especially since the back of the barrel was missing, leaving the inner wood exposed. This definitely took a bit more effort and work to get it just right, but the finished product definitely saved this bat.
Oh, let me tell you what, replacing barrels. Wow.
Yeah, this one was a challenge and a half. I'm quite sure it was.
Well, let me see if it's. Let me feel this. Yeah, this is the one that had 2 levels of wood missing that made it kind of interesting, and a lot of dead wood. Okay, so that dead wood had to be removed. I cut a piece to replace. You can still see some grain, showing through.
Mm-hmm.
This one didn't have a broken handle, I don't think.
No, it's primarily just the barrel was kind of.
I did leave the knob kind of the way it was. Kind of has that, more of an original type of look to it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was just mainly the barrel. Oh, and this one was broke down quite far. I remember that. It was a long piece of wood.
Yeah, it went all the way down, I think, to the center brand.
Right to here, yeah. But it's a lot nicer, that's for sure. And the grain is sealed.
The third bat we had worked on was this 1930s Krenz Clouder retail model of Joe Glenn. Glenn was a catcher for the Yankees, St. Louis Browns, and Boston Red Sox between 1932 and 1940. This bat has certainly seen better days, as the outer shell was exhibiting a great deal of grain separation and had a bad handle crack repaired with nails. The wood was becoming very dry due to this damage. So the nails were removed and grain secured, followed by proper finishing and oiling. The knob was also fully repaired and restored. After all this was completed, even the player's name was more readable and identifiable.
Oh, just to let you know, his name is Joe Glenn.
Joe Glenn, really? Okay.
Yeah, I kind of looked at that label and I got what you said his name was, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna surprise him because I don't think so. So that's who it is. But the crack is.
But that's also part of the purpose of cleaning it, is to really find out what's underneath it so you can identify who the player is.
Here's the crazy thing. I've cleaned some bats and was absolutely blown away by what I found underneath that dirt.
Yeah, yeah.
It could be a scribble, it could be side written, it could be some other crazy thing, but you absolutely do. You are correct. You can find some interesting information underneath there. One or two things is how wonderful the branding is.
Yeah.
Or the wood grain itself.
The wood grain itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the knob has improved, just to let you know. Much improved.
Oh, much improved. Yes. Indeed.
Yeah,
Look at that.
Look at that. It's a whole knob now. And the branding is, tremendously better. I did put a little bit of his name on there, but yeah, that's a whole lot better because there wasn't, it all was not there. So that's cool.
That is cool. Lastly, Jim worked on this Kren Special Jackie Robinson style Pro Model bat. And if you don't know who Jackie Robinson is, then you probably aren't much into the legends that helped make the game of baseball what it is today. Robinson played for the Dodgers from 1947 to 1956 and helped to end racial segregation in professional baseball. This bat was exhibiting some missing barrel wood, grain separation, a handle crack, and some missing wood on the knob. Over and above that, it was becoming very dry. But Jim once more worked his magic in reworking the barrel, securing the grain, and bringing back some of the bat's original finish and luster.
And this one was the same type of thing. This barrel turned out really, really well. Not a real big difference between the area, the space around, the bat. And it has, some of that natural color coming through. The knob was replaced in 2 locations, and the crack, boy, you'll never see it. It's gone. It is gone. So yeah, that one turned out really, really good. Now, what you'll notice is a different look on the bats, and that's kind of the thing I was telling you about, is the finish can change depending on how the bat was when you started. These two, especially this one, has a little more sheen to it. This one feels really smooth, like it should. So is this one. This one has a slight bit of roughness, and that could be from the tape they had on it. Because tape residue messes with what you do with the surface. This one is much, much duller,
right,
in appearance.
Yeah.
And you have to decide what look you want to go with, what look you like. Okay? Because what I can do, if you want to have a different feel or a slightly different look, what I can do is I can increase the amount of oil that is on the bat.
Okay.
So this has a little bit more of a sheen to it because this had more oil on it. This did not have much oil on it. And this one didn't have any oil, but I did put some wax on it.
Okay.
This one could use some oil. But that's where you tell me what type of, look you want to go with.
Okay.
The oil does add, a little more protection.
Sure.
But that is, that's a personal thing.
Okay. So, what do you think? Do you think these bats have a good chance of surviving another 80 or 100 years? I definitely think Jim's passion to preserve and his meticulous attention to detail in doing so will allow me to care for these bats much easier now and enjoy them for years to come. Here are just a few other bats in my collection that Jim has previously helped me with. Take a look. Now you might be wondering, does Jim help with newer or modern era bats? Yes, he does. But as he will tell you, the bats of today are nothing like the bats of yesteryear. The designs, quality, durability, strength, and longevity are very different than their vintage counterparts. Some of this may be by design, especially in how the game itself, as well as the individual baseball players, have changed and evolved over time.
These bats are not going to last. And Cap Anson would say that he would remove his bats from game use after about 200 hits because he figured that the grain was breaking down enough that the bat was not going to be reliable and would deliver the impact that he wanted. But nowadays, a lot of these bats, they may never make that many hits. The difficult thing I think that we have is to understand that this outer shell of the bat is extremely dense and hard. When you get through that shell, it is not dense and hard. It has a softer quality to it. and that quality will absorb moisture fairly easily.
Is that with all bats that have that?
Yes.
The softer core?
Yes. So I'll mention the difference between like these bats and then the older bats in a second, but I don't want any of this, because what this person does is he wants me to make sure that this bat's going to be around for a long time, and that is to keep the moisture out. You need to take care of those holes. It is best, even though it's a game bat, to wax the bat or to oil the bat to make sure that doesn't happen. And for game bats, this one is kind of interesting. They made a mess with what they with the holes that they put into this thing. That I don't understand why they did that. So this will be a little bit more involvement to patch those. Not too bad. What I don't like about newer bats is the way they explode. For this bat to be used and to break along the barrel like this is really quite surprising to me. I can see that if it cracks down around the handle and then the split travels up, but this is just a barrel break.
That's just a barrel break.
Yeah, so that is the part that surprised me a little bit about this, but the difference between the bats we used to have and the bats we have now are the bats today don't crack. They explode. They literally explode.
Is that because of they're not as dense too as...
They're too dense.
They're too dense.
They're too dense.
Okay.
So they're too brittle. So the tree grew too fast. Okay. So it's too dense. It's too brittle. This bat, and if I'm gonna add some light, and I'm gonna separate the bat just a little bit. That's why I have it here. But if you look at that wood inside of this bat, now this is a 90s bat, 1990s something, okay? And look at how that broke. If you really look closely at that wood inside, it's dry.
It is.
That is really, really incredibly dry wood. So the way that bat was made, what it was made from, I mean, the bat, that's not really good. Hill Rich would never have settled for that. I can guarantee you that. So that's the problem I have with bats nowadays, is that they don't break the way they used to. They pretty much just like explode. Do you remember Bo Jackson breaking the bat over his head? Breaking the bat over his leg.
Right.
Okay. I'd like to take a bat from the 1800s or 1930s and earlier.
Yeah,
okay.
And try that.
Go ahead. I dare you. I mean, look at the difference between, an old Hill Rich bat. I mean, just feel the bat.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a big bat. It's not a big barrel. But the way it feels, the density is so much different than a new bat. It's just crazy. Yeah, I guess I love these old bats.
I love the old bats as far as definitely in the handles. And I could definitely tell from today's game bats, the handles are so thin.
Yeah.
And for me, even holding a newer bat today, it's uncomfortable to me. I would prefer knowing something that's in my hand.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Here's an interesting thing. Okay, people would say or refer to this as patina. Okay, patina is a wonderful quality. It's a quality of wood. It's a quality of metal. It's a quality of leather. It's that aging process. I love the dark, kind of red look that it has.
Right.
But the surface doesn't feel right. It does not feel right to me. So there isn't any way that I would let that bat stay in that condition. Okay. I am going to clean that bat. What's going to happen is it's going to lighten up. You are going to see the wood grain more. You are going to see
the labeling more, especially in the center.
Yeah, absolutely. The labeling, the wood grain, the coloring is going to come out a little bit more. Then you're going to see what that true patina is. But this has, you can feel the amount of grit and dirt that's on that surface.
That's what I was just going to say, like a dirt and grime and grit over time versus actual patina.
That's that thing that's important to me. Hillrich told the players to, at the end of the season, clean your bat, oil the bat, or wax the bat. Because if a Hillrich bat lasts a long time or lasts longer than other bats, it's to their advantage, it's to the player's advantage, it's a win-win.
Right.
They didn't want the players to have their bats on the ground because of what moisture does to a bat. So the practice that I follow is to do what was recommended.
I would like to thank our very special guest, Jim Keading, for generously lending his knowledge, insight, and expertise to the duty we all share in the caring for and preservation of our baseball bats. If you'd like to speak to Jim directly about any of your bats, feel free to drop him an email. His email address is jimsama57@hotmail.com. That's JIMSAMA57@hotmail.com. You can also catch him on Facebook in various groups, such as Keyman Collectibles Baseball Memorabilia. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed our program. If you like our content, we ask that you give us a thumbs up, a like, share with your friends, subscribe to our channel, and ring that notification bell so you always know when our new content is published. And all of this costs nothing, but means a lot to us and keeps us growing. You may also leave us a tip if you choose. The address is provided here on your screen, and a link is provided in the description area below. So until next time, everyone, this one is history.